Going back to how much more clearly do people have to spell things out? Why isn't it obvious? If it's obvious to the electorate, why isn't it obvious to the Labour MPs, the Labour Party, that Gordon Brown has to go?
The answer is that it could be obvious to somebody and they still might not want to act. The benefit of Gordon Brown going goes to everyone in the Labour Party, but the cost of moving against him is concentrated on those people who do it. So, an economist would call that a market failure. You might get less coup than you really want. I think that that's the reason why some of the members of the cabinet didn't go. It made sense for them as a group, but each individual thought it's not for me. So for James Purnell, who probably couldn't win the leadership, the calculation was different than David Miliband, who felt he could win the leadership and therefore he didn't want to be the assassin. So I think it is obvious to all of them, but they're each looking at each other, wondering who's going to pay the cost of doing the moving.
Which is complete paralysis. I mean, is there anyone who could go for the leadership? If Alan Johnson carries on ruling himself out until there is a position, is there anyone that will do this?
I don't think you could say that it was just a matter of them all calculating who's going to get the leadership. I think it's that fine calculation between whether Labour could do even worse under a regicide. I think when they look at these results today, they'll say, but there is no worse than 16% and coming behind UKIP. I mean, he can't get much worse, or he gets much worse than that. It doesn't really matter. I think what's important now, and the best hope for Labour, is that Gordon Brown should do the one thing that he can do to save his party, and that is, with great dignity, say, I tried my utmost, I did my best. I'm afraid it hasn't worked, and I think now the best thing I can do for my party is to stand down. And there would be a sigh of relief. I think there's hardly anybody in the party who wouldn't like to see that happen, if it could happen with that sort of dignity and elegance. And of course the thing is, people always love ex-politicians and ex-leaders. He'd find himself rather popular and rather dignified if he did that now.
There's the Gordinator factor, as Daniel Hannan explained again, that the popping eyes, he will not go because what is there for him to lose?
The one way out of this, if Labour wants a new leader, would be a voluntary resignation. But it's almost certain that's not going to happen. I mean, we've had his reaction to these results. He's formed a new cabinet and we're going to get policy announcements and all the rest of it. So the question then is how. Now, it's a great phrase, this one that's been quoted about behind the sofa government, as if they've been cowardly and all the rest of it, or very ambitious because David Miliband wants a few more months at the Foreign Office. It's nothing to do with that. They've made the calculation, heavily influenced by Peter Mandelson, that the safer route, or the less disastrous route, is not to carry out an act of regicide.
Are they just terrified of him, of Peter Mandelson?
No, I don't think they're terrified of him. They're heavily influenced by him. I think there's a degree to which they're slightly frightened about taking on Gordon Brown. But there is another missing element to all of this, which is not a single opinion poll has suggested that anyone else would make Labour more popular. So it is one hell of a thing to do to commit this act of regicide, and it won't now be the cabinet. They're hemmed in. So it'll have to be Labour MP after Labour MP doing it.
These are intelligent people, and they're intelligent politicians, and I think all of us sitting here would think if they got another leader, it would make a difference. Well, the opinion polls are telling us no one knows who Alan Johnson is, but none of us believe he wouldn't make a difference. He would. So you have to ask the question.
Almost anybody would. I was talking to a psephologist yesterday who said actually you could practically have a lottery on of everybody in Parliament and pick anyone out would do better. That the anti-Gordon Brown vote is very, very strong.
Okay. Freudian perhaps, Steve, but this gesture you keep making is a sort of stabbing one.
Oh, really?
But yeah.
Maybe I'm the candidate. I'm a knife.
There you go. It's all down to Steve Richards, David. What do you think about that?
Thanks, Emily. In a moment we'll go and hear from that extraordinary, duet